Welcome to News with a View, a Fat Cat production. We are going live and doing a recorded show today. Today is June 5th, and this is episode 76. So, some things going on in the news, of course, as always, is the case with our president. Let's see. We're sending stuff out via the stream, hoping it's working. But I'm also recording today's show. Yesterday I did not record it. Though it's up on YouTube. And it can be found on youtube.com/the @ John Fat Cat. So today we have Supreme Court makes it easier to claim reverse discrimination in employment. And this arises out of a case in Ohio. And she said, this came from a woman who filed a case in, of course, Ohio, where she said she didn't get the job and was demoted because she was straight. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of this case, but this case has been floating around a while. And this now is going to affect 20 lawsuits in 20, well, this is going to affect lawsuits in 20 states, I should say that. And, of course, the District of Columbia, where until now courts had set a higher bar when members of majority groups or minority groups, white or heterosexuals, sue for discrimination under the federal law. So this is a biggie where HRs and businesses are going to really have to mind their P's and Q's, not LGBTQ, but mind their P's and Q's when dealing with employees and hiring. And this filters down in a lot of different situations. It's a win for what I would say the, not minorities, because whites do make up the majority. But what this does now is it does set the bar to say to employers, well, you know, I'm going to take Karen Jean over here because she's straight, because she's gay, and we got to have so many gays and so many of this and so many of that that there's only so much room for white people. So this is going to have a major dent, mostly in the hiring world, and it could even flip around back the other way, where an employer goes, listen, the last thing I want to do is, have a problem where I got to now battle in courts. Thank you, I'm just going to hire the white person and stay safe, or the white woman and stay safe. So this is going to go back and forth over time, and it's just, more news, more well, actually, it's good news because it's justice. And who doesn't want justice? Now I'm going to try to go to my other camera, my favorite camera. There we go. So this is a good day. Now, if I didn't say it already before, I'm the host of this show, News with View, Fat Cat Production. John A. Costa, that's me, Fat Cat. And again, this show deals with taking things out of the news and seeing how it was spun in the news. Now, in this case, this came, I think, from Reuters, and they said bringing a lawsuit over so-called reverse discrimination. Well, it's not so-called anymore. And reverse discrimination, they go so-called, but it really should just say discrimination, not reverse discrimination, because there's no such thing as reverse discrimination. But it waggles out of the mouth good. People can take hold of that. So now I guess the case can move forward, and it doesn't mean she wins her case. It just means that her case can go forward. Before the lawsuit was stopped, and they said, no, you can't. It didn't violate anything. And the courts are now saying, the case does merit to be looked at. And again, it doesn't mean that they'll fine for her. But what it does show is that people can move forward with their cases. And again, for certain people, that's going to be a good thing. Okay. Second thing in the news today, and I'm going to try to keep this because I have some other topics in here that are going to be a little wordy. The Trump administration, for the first time, returns wrongly deported migrant to U.S. A wrongly deported Guatemalan man has been returned to the United States, marking the first time the Trump administration has brought back a deportee based on a judge's order. The man who was wrongly deported to Mexico was returned to the U.S. on Wednesday, according to his lawyer. The return of the man, identified in court filing as OCG, is the first instance in where the Trump administration, in the midst of sweeping immigration crackdown, had brought a deportee back after a judge ordered their return. So, in this case, the judge ordered the return, of course, and the Trump administration must have said in their own little meeting, hey, this was bad, get him back. And Mexico allowed him to be returned. Now, you got to remember that he's a Mexican citizen and falls under their sovereignty. Might not be under their jurisdiction when he's in the United States, to a certain extent, but he's a citizen of Mexico. So Mexico could have turned around and said, "You're not getting this guy back," just like what's going on in some other cases where they said, "You're not getting him back." El Salvador said, "You're not getting him back. You'll get him back as soon as he finishes his sentence here." Now, I honestly really believe that if Marco Rubio went over there and sat down and said, "Hey, it's causing a problem here. We do not want to have a problem with you. You tell us how we can proceed that you save face. We don't have to save face. We already got egg on our face. But we want you to save face, Mr. President of El Salvador. And you tell us how we must act in accordance and what we must do to get this individual back to the United States. If that's what the United States wants to do. I don't think the United States is looking to do that. And when I say the United States, I'm talking about the current administration, not the courts. And I think the courts can order the president or the administration, not the president, but the administration, to return him or to facilitate. But if they don't want to return him, now that could set the precedent up for the courts to say, well, see, this is what happens. This is why they got to have due process here. So that doesn't happen again. Because, see, once we send them over there, we can't get them back. If we looked and go, ooh, we agree, we all made a mistake here. But if they're not going to return them, where do we go? Do we say, oops, sorry? And I feel that anyone that comes into this country illegally gives up their right of our legality. They got to go back across. If they want to then petition to come in here, they can petition to come in here. Now, we have rules to say that they can't come back for 10 years. We won't even look at their, we won't even go further than up, he's on our list, boom, denied. But I don't think that they should be under every law we have. I just think that's foolish of us and not a very good or sound policy. So, in that sense, I don't think they should be doing it. I'm looking over there because my monitor that you can't see, well, maybe you could see right in the little corner there, is my live stream. And I'm recording, and apparently I'm doing everything right today. Oh, we'll see. So this return of this illegal that was here, that was sent back, and he might not be illegal. I take that back. The mistake could have been that he's documented and is pending. And he shouldn't have been sent back. I mean, a lot of the people that are being sent back are absolutely no documentation. They've gotten in here in the last 2 years where there hasn't been a lot of documentation on these people. They can't even claim I had, a temporary protection status. I was a parolee. There's nothing because there's no paperwork on the individual. Adios, muchachos. And again, with all that stuff, the ones I really feel for are the Cubans and even the Nicaraguans who, were fleeing a country whose government, and Venezuela too, government was actively against the United States. They're enemies and they were leaving. And there should have been some type of something, but not the illegal crossing. You can't come here on the hopes that we're going to take you. And it's like knocking at the door and just barging your way in. And you didn't even knock. All of a sudden you just appeared on my couch. And because my window's open, that doesn't mean you can come in and sit on my couch. And then once you sit on my couch, you go, well, can't do anything. I'm family now. I'm sitting on your couch. That doesn't give you the right to do that. And we have to have some common sense. Absolute, we need common sense. And you could feel that, we should take in everyone. And, all right, then set up a system for that. Make a law. Change the law. And then I'd be all for it. I go, well, that's what people voted for. That's what Congress voted on. And it was approved, and it went, and it got signed, and now that's the law of the land. And again, like I said, I'm a constitutionalist. I'm a person who stands behind that. And you have the law. And and where there is law and is wording on a particular subject, like birthrights. And I know I'm going on a little tangent here, but follow me. Please follow me. There is wording in the Constitution on that. And there is a place where each person who's making a claim for or against has a pretty good grip. But I think in the end, I think Trump's going to win that one. And it might be 5-4. But I think Trump's going to win that one. And there will be people upset. And I said, not having a plan. All right, I want to see your plan. You win it. What's your, you haven't won it yet, but tell me what you're going to do. Show me the plan. And I'm sure there is a plan, but they don't want to show it. Because there might be people going, whoa, slow down. And, I don't think the birthright was what the opposition is saying. And when I say the opposition, I'm going to say the Democrats are saying. I think the birthrights were all about slavery and the descendants of slaves. So I think that if you read any of the books like I read over here, constitutions and their meaning and how the creators of those amendments, their letters back and forth and the discussions inside the Congresses would give you a whole different meaning on it. The flip side of that is there is absolute vetted instances where the Supreme Court in the past has sided with people to say, no, you're here, you were born here. What is done is done. Or, you were brought over as a child. You had no say. You had to come here with your parents. So you had no say. That's where I have a problem with a lot of this. Is where do you go with it, and how far back do you go? There were, I'm just going to say it as plain as I can say. You had a lot of Italians that came over here, and they were called WAPs. And that just meant without papers. You just showed up, and, all right, sign here and go through. They never became citizens. They didn't do anything. And there was a time frame. There's a time frame if you look when you come over here for the purposes of immigration. You must become a citizen. Or if not, you must report every year. And if you don't, that's it. So what do you do with those people? You tell someone whose great-grandfather came over here like that. He wasn't a citizen, so your mother, your grandmother wasn't. You know, well, maybe the mother was, but if the father wasn't, or the mother wasn't and the father was, I mean, where do you go with all this? And again, are we going to have a system where you must bring in your papers and it's like an ethnic, you know, you on one side, you on the other side, and where people can make the comparison to that, to and you go back through history, they've done it. Ask the Armenians and the Jews. You know, so do you know who made the Jews? Which country made the Germany? Put the Star of David on. It was Switzerland. So they didn't come off and go through Switzerland. It's a fact. Look it up. The wonderful Swiss. But I'm going off way in a tangent the other way. But the idea of birthrights, and then how do you settle it? How do you define it? At this point, it's like I said, it's a toothpaste that's out of the tube. You can get it back in there, but it's going to be messy, and is it really worth it? So tell me what your plan is, so I could at least say, that's a good plan, or that can work, or that makes sense. Or just say, see, now that's crazy talk. And I've said on this program before, from day one, I am not locked in step with anyone. The only thing I'm locked in step with is the Constitution. You follow the Constitution, you're going to be okay in my book. But the Constitution can be questioned. And up until the decision, those rules are the rules. If they change, that's fine. If the robes change them, that's fine. I have complete faith in our Supreme Court and the people, justices that are there from top to bottom. I have complete faith in them. Because that's how the system works. But I'm a person that likes to see a plan. I don't mind kicking the tires on something I'm looking at, a car I'm looking at, looking under the hood, asking for the Carfax, So when it comes to the immigration, yes, we have laws, and they must be followed. Or change the laws. If you're not going to follow them, and everyone's for that, that's ridiculous, we don't want to follow it, then don't do it. Don't follow it. Change them, and then they're gone. And I'm fine with that. If that's what you can do, that's how our system works. But until you do, you follow the law. And you have these people going and trying to stop ICE. And, impeding them. Well, I think those people should be arrested. You want to fight this? You start voting in people that fit your agenda. Legislators. And in this case, they must be federal. And you change the system. But in the meantime, you play by those rules. And if you try to stop or intimidate or impede, a duly authorized detention or apprehension, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And you should. You should. You want to protest in front of the, in Washington and stuff, and peacefully protest? I'm all for that. You should be able to protest. Just don't get in the way of other people. You could stay out there 24 hours a day and chant in front of the White House. Chant in front of wherever you're legally allowed to be at a certain time and place. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's your right. But to stop the enforcement of our laws, nope. Nope. Won't stand for that. Won't stand for that. Okay. Now here's a situation where I had said before that I did not agree with what the president had done. In his inception of doing it, he had the right to do it, but you had to follow A and then B and then C and then D. You couldn't jump to D and then go back to B or anything like this. So what am I talking about? Trump now has formally asked Congress to claw back approved spending targeted by DOGE. And this is where he said, I know Congress has already approved it. I'm stopping it. And I'm not releasing that money. And he didn't call it stopping it. He called it a pause. And in certain instances, the president can do that, but he must immediately, if at all possible, due to the situation, immediately notify Congress with an explanation on why he is doing such an action. 1979, we were giving money and we were helping Iran. We were doing business, we were doing transactions, we were selling things. And the government fell, and the government then became hostile to the United States, and immediately the president steps in and goes, boop, don't write that check. No transfers to that bank, no boom, boom, it ends, stop. And he could do that in an emergency basis and then go to Congress and go, this is why I did it, and Congress can then just go, we agree, boom, boom, and they endorse it. In this case, the president didn't do that. He just stopped it and said, you're not writing checks. And I'm ordering the departments to stop. And that triggered other problems. You're not going to do what I tell you to do, you're fired. Because you work for me under the executive branch. And then those people say, you can't fire me. You can't do it. It says right over here you can't do it. And he goes, yeah, I can do it. And there's 4 reasons why. You broke one of them. So you're gone. You're ineffective. Out. Now that is standing up. But what the president should have done is his first day in office notified the new Congress and said, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to you and I'm stopping it and I want your approval. And there is a small little gap time that you could do, but not really. It's very complicated. It's pretty specific on, when you can step in. And I don't think he did it the right way. And it's not what I would have done. I would have gone to Congress with the information I had, given it to Congress during a speech. I would have asked to speak to Congress. Obama did it, went to and spoke to Congress in the chamber. Very powerful. And he did it twice in his presidency. And like I said, I didn't have to agree with everything Obama did, but I also did not disagree with everything Obama did, or what Clinton did, or what Bush did, or what Trump did, or even what Biden did. Didn't disagree with everything, because I'm not locked in step. But in this case, he should have under resuccession, should have gotten the approval of Congress. And he might have been able to do that. He might have been able to do that in the euphoria of January 20th, in that first week. He might have been able to do that. Gotten enough votes. But he didn't want to risk it because he did not want to have a failure of that magnitude in his first week or first month. And so he took a gamble. Now, he kind of won it in a sense, but I wouldn't have done it that way. That's me. I wouldn't have done it that way. So now he has gone to them, and he requests if it passes the House and the Senate, would formally enshrine many of these spending cuts and freezes sought by Doge. And he must provide something in the way of proof to explain why he's doing this. And I think he has enough that he can do it. And I think that Congress they'll get enough votes in there to do it. But I would not have done it the way he did it. Absolutely not. Wouldn't have done it. Now, of course, the news media is now jumping all over this. Well, certain news medias, liberals, where they're saying that this comes at a time when Musk is extremely unhappy with the tax cuts and spending plan making its way through Congress right now. And they're going, well, Trump and Musk are fighting, they're at odds. No, they're not. You know what their odds are? Musk is saying you should have cut more. And the spending needs to stop even more. And cutting 50% isn't enough. You should cut 75% or 80% or 90%. And Trump is saying, well, I'm happy with what we got over here, and I could live with this, and we can go in the next budget, we'll see where it all goes. And Musk is saying, no, you know what needs to be done. So there's a difference of opinion on how these cuts should happen, but understand they're both on the same page of cutting. And that's not being on the outs, it's just who wants to dig deeper? Who wants to hit the bone? And Trump is saying, I hit the bone. And Musk is saying, yeah, you hit the bone, keep going, take the whole fucking thing off. Just cut it. Stop taking a little, shaving off a little at a time. Lob it all off. And that's where the difference is. But Musk isn't the president. He doesn't make that call. Musk doesn't have to worry about Vance getting in or Congress winning in 2026, more where we keep the houses. He doesn't have to worry too much about that because he can just, la, 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 and walk back to whatever he was doing. Temper. Trump knows what he's doing. And I think a lot of this, and you might differ on that, is all drama. To distract from what's really going on. And anyone that doesn't think that kind of forgot that Trump had a TV show. So this makes good news for the Democrats. The Republicans are fighting with one another at the highest levels. No, they're not. In your dreams. Those same dreams about you having the blue wall, that Harris was going to take Florida and Texas and Iowa and have 390 electoral votes by 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I had that work out for you guys. Yeah, how'd that work out? So, but this is something where now Trump has formally gone on the 140th day or whatever it is, where I think he should have done that January 20th. That should have been one of the first things that he did. And he might have gotten it. Might have gotten it. But he couldn't do it without the proof. So he needed to stop it right then and there and create a crisis with it. To bring it to the attention to say, well, I'm going to look into it, and this is who the guy I'm going to have do it, and we're going to find out. And we did find out. And there is plenty of waste. Even Chucky Schumer said, we all know there's waste. What we don't know is how much, how long, who's it going to, how'd that happen. Now, how it happened is an open book. You can go to the books in Congress and see where every dollar has been appropriated, where it went, and who said how much, and whose hands went up to approve it. So that information is there. But believe me, both Republicans and Democrats, no one's getting on any soapbox and screaming except a few to say, hey, we know there was a lot of shenanigans, Huckabee and stuff, and a lot of other, well, not other ones, but you haven't heard crap from Lindsey Graham, right? You haven't heard crap from Schiff, who sat in Congress when this was all going on, and Schumer, and Pelosi, and Waters, and Green, and Warren, and Sanders. Now, AOC has squawked about things, and Sanders, to a point, has squawked about things. But when it came to money for their causes. They were more than happy to help the other guy. And that's how all these things happened. That's how all these things happen. So, all right. In another Supreme Court case, and I like Supreme Court cases. Mostly they're all coming out now because it's the end of the season. Supreme Court sides with the Catholic Charities in religious rights case over unemployment tax. And this came from the great state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin is as socialist as you can get. As socialist. And this was a unanimous ruling that this came over that the charities run by the Catholic Church who employ people said they were exempt from paying unemployment tax and other taxes because they're a religious organization. And Wisconsin said, yeah, you're not. This is a company you have set up over here, and the day-to-day work doesn't involve religious teaching. Much of the group's fund is from public money, and neither employees nor people receiving services have to belong to any faith, according to the court papers. And these organizations, the Catholic organization, said, we don't force you to take literature on our faith. We don't force you to attend meetings. We provide a service to anyone who walks in through that door. Anyone. And Wisconsin said, well, then that doesn't make you a religion. And they turned around and said, well, if we did that, then we could be cited for discrimination. And this went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court unanimously agreed with the Catholic Charities. And they said, well, Wisconsin, you gave exceptions to the state unemployment tax to other religious organizations. Why not this one? And their thing was because it didn't involve teaching of the religious faith. So, this was a big win for anyone who has, there's a big win for religious organizations where groups have said, tax the church. Tax them. Tax the Catholic Church because they're anti-abortionists. And that's going against my rights. And they wanted to punish them. That's what it was all about. It was about punishing them. And the best way you punish an organization is in the pocketbook. And they've known that. And Wisconsin argues that an organization had paid their tax for over 50 years and doesn't qualify. Well, I wouldn't say a church or a synagogue or a mosque is an organization. But you could call it a faith-based organization and thus make a difference. But Wisconsin, you got called out and you lost. And this is a big win. This is a very, very big win. Because now other states that might have been thinking about doing it, going, well, New York, Ohio, Illinois, Minnesota, could have been thinking, well, if Wisconsin wins this, we can make some money here. And we could hurt these people too. Good call by all the justices. That's why I said I have complete faith in our justices who argued that this was really a First Amendment right. So, proved what I said before. I have complete faith in them. This is what I was talking about before, too. Neighbors band together to shame ICE agents out of their community. There's a video floating around. It was out of San Diego, neighborhood of South Park. Standing up to U.S. immigration enforcement agencies, donned in full tactical gear and armed with assault rifles. Well, because a lot of the people that they have been going after in California and Colorado have been armed gang members. And our police forces shouldn't have to be targets because some people get upset that they're in tactical gear, giving themselves protection. That's thunder in the background. That's God telling me I'm right. The agents eventually had to use flashbang grenades. They said to get away. We made them retreat. Well, not really, because they did arrest the 4 people that they were going after and took them away in handcuffs. So, Yasmin Pitts O'Keefe, a spokesperson for HSI, a branch within ICE, told the Times, the demonstrators became unruly, and as a result, less lethal noise flash diversionary devices were deployed to allow law enforcement to exit the scene as safely as possible. When gatherings like these are formed, it not only places law enforcement in danger, but also the demonstrators and onlookers attempting to impede law enforcement activity. They should have all been arrested. And what I want to know about this, they said neighbors. Who were those neighbors? I bet they weren't neighbors. I bet these were paid demonstrators. No one comes out when the police are going to someone's house and starts running and screaming. They demand to know what's going on. No sane person does that. They're like, oh my God, what's going on over there? Oh, the police there. You stand on your front lawn, you stand on the curb. And the police might say, hey, go back into your homes. This is an ongoing situation. Or there's nothing to see here. And you being out here, it's a distraction. And as good citizens, you go, all right, it's... they're not ordering me to go back. They're asking us to go back there. Yeah, all right, do your job. We'll find out. I would never think of stopping anyone in full military gear and go, no, you can't come in here. So this had to have been planned. This whole thing in the community, this was planned. And I'm betting if you went to those neighbors, they go, we weren't out there. I was at work. I was not here. I don't know who those people were. They didn't come from my house. And because none of those people gave their names to these reporters. and showing this. This was all bullshit. This was, again, the left getting and trying to stop law enforcement. And it really has to stop. And again, I'm all for, at that point, you're not being made an example of. You're breaking the law, you're a criminal, and as such, we can do 0 to 60 to you. We could do 60, or we can do 0 to you in front of a judge. We could do 10, 20, 30, all the increments. But we can do that. So that's not making an example of you. It's exercising the law. So this is something that people just have to get on board with and realize what's going on. So I'm just looking at mine. Yeah, I'm still on the air and still recording. So far, so good. All right, so that O'Keefe also said the times that 4 people living in the country illegally were taken into custody. Now, I do say that this is a lot of work for 4 people, and there might have been easier ways for them to do it, you know, but if you really want to go after illegals, you go to any restaurant. Go to any big restaurant, and you'll find illegals there. So, easy to do. Call an Uber. They come to you. Put the cuffs on them. Yeah. I need an Uber from this location, and then give them we're going to go to, this address and have it be like an ICE detention center. Yeah, so they drive themselves there with you in the back, and they go, oh, by the way, driver, get out of the car. Yeah. But this is the problem, again, by not having, and we didn't want to do it, and people said for years, no national ID, no ID. And we're showing now what happens when you do not protect your borders. And you don't know who's friend or who's foe here. And Trump is absolutely correct when he said it's an invasion. Because we don't know. We don't know who's here. Colorado. That gentleman he was here illegally. And he sets people on fire. And you could tell me that we're not in trouble. And they go, well, that's one person out of it. And I go, no, there's so many instances of that. And even if it was just one instance, if that was your family member who was set on fire, what would you say? Well, it happens. I should expect when I'm going to the mall to be doused with gasoline and set on fire. Right? Because that's, when I go to the mall, that's what I anticipate, right? And I understand of taking it to the extreme one way or the other. And I get the idea of throwing the baby out with the wash, too. We need a voter ID. And a voter ID, we need on driver's license saying whether you're a citizen or not. We have to have it. Because not having it will destroy us. Has to get done, folks. You might not like it, but you're going to have it. All right. Trump administration moves to fast-track firing of federal workers for misconduct. Now, this is an interesting one because, of course, me being in labor for over 30 years and being part of the inner workings of a local union, not a national. It was part of a national union, but I never did anything on a national level. It was all local. So, in collective bargaining agreements, you have language in there how to address a member being accused of misconduct or a violation of workplace rules as it pertains to a CBA. A CBA is a contract bargaining agreement. Inside that contract bargaining agreement is the mechanisms on what that employee has to do. Now, every one of them will have, you must follow the policies of or company policies. And those policies can change at any time, and you will be made aware of that. You might get an email saying, hey, go look at the new company policy on, lateness, or the company policies have changed. And that's it. You've been notified, and you have to go through and figure out what changed. I mean, that's how lax it could be. Or they could say, hey, this is what the language used to say. This is what it says now. Going forward, boom, boom. If you have any question, please call your HR department, blah, 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 or see your supervisor or whatever. So what they're doing here now, and this is through the OPM, which is the Office of Personnel Management, which is the federal government's HR department. They don't set policy. They don't write policy. They enforce the policy. And those policies are made by leadership. In this case, the Trump administration. In the past, the Biden administration. Before that, the Obama administration. Before that, the Bush administration. So every administration can go in there and tweak up the policies. This one is interesting because what the Trump administration has done is null and voided some collective bargaining agreements. And usually when that happens, and it does happen, everyone reverts then to the pure language of either that company or that state policies or whatever. And you must adhere to it. So it isn't anything where it's like draconian. It's just where you had some little added protection, meaning as in your collective bargaining agreement, they couldn't do anything to you that was considered arbitrary and capricious. And those are big words because, but they couldn't come out and say, like some states have, but this is federal, but I'm talking, you could be fired for cause. And the cause could be, I don't want you here. The cause can be a lot of things. I don't have to give you a reason. I could just say, your services are no longer required. But what did I do? We just don't need you anymore. And you have very limited recourse with that. You know, if you said, hey, you know, I heard him call you a fat ass, and, you know, I heard that guy, the boss, and, you know, they all got together and said, we don't want that fat ass around here anymore. He's a fat, lazy guy. He's lazy. He's fat. That's not the image we want here. Let him go. Now, that could be discrimination, and you have recourse, but you'd have to prove that that happened. Yeah, fat chance. Get it? But that's not, you know, that's just an example. And here, the U.S. Office of Personnel Management published a proposed rule that would allow the office, which acts as the federal government's human resource department, to direct other agencies to fire employees for conduct such as tax evasion, leaking sensitive information, and refusing to testify in other workers' disciplinary cases. That's an interesting clause, because in a lot of union bylaws, you can't take an action that harms another brother or sister. So I sat on a case where a member told the company, yeah, that guy, I saw him standing out in the hallway when this happened, and he should have been over there, but he was over there. And that's what happened. He wasn't doing his job. And the company fired the other guy. And we got all the way up to the point of taking it to arbitration, and I had shown to the other side that this guy's observation timeline didn't fit. And, you know, when he said he was out there at 8 o'clock, and no, I was able to time everything out through security cameras and some other techniques, and said he couldn't have seen what he said he saw at that time because there was no one out there at those times. And the company said, but he wasn't where he was supposed to be. And I said, well, that's hard to say because he couldn't be in two spots at the same time. Where, you know. And we didn't take it to arbitration. And I always felt that that was, I might have rubbed the company's nose in it a little bit too hard. And they turned around, and we turned around to the member that ratted. And do we bring that member up on charges and remove him from the union? Which he'd still be able to work. Couldn't bar him from working. But he would be a person non grata. We would still have to represent him. You still have to represent those people. So we just said no, and we went to this individual. I said, you cost this guy his job, even though you might have been correct that he wasn't where he was supposed to be. But you threw him under the bus. And, you know, I wanted to know why. I said, because you took a personal grudge and got a guy that was with the company for 25 years. You got him fired. I mean, That changed my whole perspective on that person, and I told him, I said, I will represent you. But in legal terms, representation is, again, a very broad. I just have to make one phone call, and I represented you. That's it. Hey, what did you do to this guy? Oh, you want to fire him now, too? What did he do? All right. Thanks. Bye. Log the call, log the time, just like I would tell him, hey, I want this call logged that, in your record books. And, yeah, you're fired. Well, I want to take it to arbitration. No, we're not taking it to arbitration. I called, I spoke to them, did what we could do. That's the way the union could get back at you. So, but in this thing, the disciplinary cases where you could drag people in, and if they don't want to do it, they go, hey, I don't want to, hey, listen, I've met his family, or her or whatever. We go to the same church. We go, I don't want to, if you got a reason to fire him, well, okay, you take it. I don't want to. Well, no, you work with him. Have you saw him not do his job? Well, have you seen him ever sleep on the job? Now, you have to be careful. Because if you turn around and you lie, you're fired too. Because in your policy handbook, you must be truthful. The company will not stand for any dishonesty. And the government is a company, and they have rules. And if you ever read a federal handbook, you'd be holy. I got to check, make sure my zipper clasp is in the right direction. If I miss a belt loop, well, I could be in trouble. So work rules are very important. And it is very hard for you to prove, well, that guy. And they go, well, we're not talking about that guy. We're talking about you right now. Don't point to that guy. We're talking to you. And they will just chew you to pieces. Chew you to pieces. So everything else, like tax evasion. Now, you're a federal employee. You should be paying your taxes. And now, is that being accused of tax evasion? Or being convicted of tax evasion? But how about if I went in and they go, you were doing this, you were trying to evade taxes on that? Or is that you don't file taxes? What does that mean? Tax evasion? Is that leaking sensitive information? What's considered sensitive information? We have 3 water coolers. Oh, you told them we had 3 water coolers. Why'd you tell someone you had 3 water coolers? You weren't allowed to do that. Well, it's a water cooler. No. So, all this stuff has a meaning. And you might say, well, a reasonable person would say sensitive information would be releasing something. You're talking reasonable person. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, well, what do you consider sensitive information? It could be anything. So when these things start cropping up in some people go, well, I don't release information. Or I pay my taxes. And, you know, a workers' disciplinary case, see, that's a biggie. Because, you know, they could come into you and go, well, did you ever see him sleep at work? Well, yeah. And, you know, a good representative for the union would be, in what instances did you see him sleeping at work? Well, it was during his break or during lunch. You know, he'd kick back and close his eyes. All right. Is that allowed at work? I don't know. No one ever stopped anyone from doing it. You know, and then you could just say, you know, well, that was something that was being done on the job. It's past practice. But if they said, well, was it lunchtime when you saw him? And you could just turn around and go, we don't have a scheduled lunch time. You could take a lunch where, you know, from 11 in the morning in the time frame up till, you know, 1 in the afternoon, depends. You know, you don't, if I'm on the phone and I go, well, I'm on, you know, it's 11 o'clock, sorry, call back, click, I'm on a meal. So I don't know if it was lunch hour or not. No idea. And you can go down those roads, but these are the things that you have to watch out for, because they'll tell you, hey, I just want to give you fair warning here. If you are not truthful with us, and we find out that the information that you're giving us is not truthful, knowingly not truthful. And if we ask you a question and you go, I don't know. You're asking, I don't know. You know, and they go, well, didn't you tell Bill that you saw him sleeping? And you don't know that they've already spoken to Bill. Now you're in trouble. And this is where union having a rep with you could sort all that out beforehand. Because we used to do that and go, listen, you're leading the guy down the trap here. We're not going to allow that. You know, you want to fire him right now. Boom, and we'll go down that road. Which, sure, as the sun's coming up in the east and setting in the west, we know that this guy, they got the information to fire him. They just can't prove it yet without, you know, they got the mashed potatoes, they haven't put the butter on it yet, or the salt to taste. And they might not want to eat it plain because it might get left there. So, you got to be real careful. And that's one of them. And that's how, when they say we're going to fast track it. Yeah, that's a code word for a code word of we're going to do what's necessary to fire you. We're going to make it as easy for us and as hard for you as we can legally make it. And that's federal workers have decades been covered by an array of job protections, including the ability to contest firing by engaging in lengthy administrative processes. Now, that's called arbitration. And there might even be things where, okay, this person's not doing a good enough job. Maybe he needs a little bit more brushing up on skills or whatever. You transfer them from one job to another job, and you might not give them enough time to adapt to it. He was great at the other job that you took away, and a computer now does that, but now you're having them do something over here, and he's 48 years old. He's got to refigure all this stuff out. So you had the ability to do that. And so the proposal would allow the agency to refer misconduct cases to the OPM instead of going through the traditional disciplinary process. If the OPM determines that the removal of an employee is required, the agency would have 5 days to terminate them. Illogically, the government has far greater ability to bar someone from federal employment who has committed a serious crime or misconduct in the past than it does to remove a person who engages in the exact same behavior as a federal employee. So, what they're saying, the OPM is saying, if you were a tax cheat, we couldn't hire you. You'd be barred. If you were convicted of releasing sensitive data. Now, it doesn't say who sensitive data was. Was it government? Was it a job? Like the young man that was said to let go from that one company, and he was part of Doge, where they said he had released company secrets. Well, the OPM would immediately, and within 5 days, could fire him. They had 5 days to make a decision. Which, I don't believe that. Now, when you put a time like that on there, the first thing they'll do is day one, they'll fire you. And you can try to fight as you want to get back. But once you're on the out, that's going to take 6 months, 18 months, 2 years to get you back. And I'd say most of those cases, they never succeed. So, but what the government is saying, that we wouldn't hire a criminal. So why would we keep a criminal? Well, they make a point, but it's the workers to testify to a worker's disciplinary case. And when they say testify, are you talking in a court of law? Or are you talking at an OPM meeting where I don't have any representation? You could ask me anything you want, and I'm bound to answer your questions. Whereas before, we could object. You can't ask that guy that question. Just like I said, have you ever saw him sleeping? I don't know if he was sleeping or his eyes were closed. I didn't have a monitor on him checking his brain wave. So you can't ask him that. I mean, you could ask, did I ever see him sleeping while he was in his pajamas at work? I'll let you ask him that question. Hey, did you ever see Charlie in pajamas at work? No. He answered it. But if you don't have representation there to stop that, well, I saw him with his eyes closed. Oh, so he was sleeping. Well, you just said his eyes were closed. If I close my eyes like this, I'm going to assume, I'm going to say you're sleeping. Because aren't your eyes supposed to be opened at work? So I mean, this is what goes on in the real world. Now, that didn't happen a lot in these type of settings because you had an agency in there, like a union, who would go, yeah, you'd empty the room out and you'd be sitting there with them and go, okay, what's your beef? Just tell me what your beef is. I'm not going to tell him. And all right. So that is what happens. And I feel like some of this, when they do this, the fast track, when they say fast track, that's never a good day for you. You know, when we would have someone at work who'd get in trouble and it was serious enough at that for them to go, we're going to suspend them with pay. And tomorrow we're going to have a meeting. You know that's pretty serious. Because they don't want to pay him anything more than they have to do for that one day. Or if they just say, hey, we fired him. He's gone. We know that under the collective bargaining agreement, we have to have a little talk with you. This is the little talk we had with you. Yeah. That's it. I've had that happen too. And, you know, you go in, you talk to people, you find out through back doors what's going on. And then you try, hey, you know, we'll have an arbitration hearing before we go to arbitration. And everyone's holding their cards very close. But we all know we're holding cards. And we go from there. And we have been successful in saying, you know, hey, we know that this person, you know, you said he was drinking on the job. And, you know, we said, you know, and I said, I'm the first person who said, I don't want someone drunk on the job because he could hurt my members. He's a member, but he could hurt a bunch of my members. Something happens, you know, he could put my members in jeopardy needlessly. And they'll go, oh, yeah, okay, well, so. They go, did you know that he had a drinking problem? Well, you know, hey, this isn't the first time we had a little talk with him. Oh, we had a talk with him. Where were we? Well, we didn't think that we needed to have you there. No, you didn't you? Did you offer him counseling? No, but he knows it's a... Did you offer him counseling? No. Well, that makes it interesting. And, you know, we look at him and go, listen, you need to talk to you need to go to HR immediately with this stuff and talk to them too. And usually we had an HR person there and they would immediately go, well, we didn't know that he had talked to him. Okay, listen, this is friendly right now. And, you know, I'm not going to run and jam this up you. But you might want to talk to him. And then how about get back to us on Tuesday? I'm not asking, this is Wednesday. I'm giving you till Tuesday. And get back to us. And I will even say if this guy was drinking and this guy has a problem, I'm not making, you know, and come Tuesday you want to put him to a program, I'm not going to ask that you give him this 5 days pay or whatever. Let's get him healthy first. Can we say that if that anything happens by Tuesday, we get him healthy first? And then they come back, and then Tuesday they make the phone call, like, hey, you know, listen, we still want to get, and I go, listen, can we get him healthy first? And then 9 times out of 10, they give him his job back. But we tell that person, you will for the next 2 years be at their beck and call for any type of testing, be it a blood test, be it a pee test, be it a breathalyzer. Now, we will make sure that it's just not one source, that it has to go out to at least 2 people and they got to concur, and then you're fired. If you come back, you're over the limit, and or if they find illegal drugs in you, you're gone. We can only protect you so far. And we do that, and then, the company for a while, and they'll stick to it. Believe me, they'll take that person out for drug testing and alcohol testing. And sometimes, like, after like 2 years, we go, you just can't single this guy out. The guy has shown 2 years, but you can't ask him, is everything all right? Is he having any problems? Does he feel he needs to go for a refresher with it, or he needs more, or she needs more? So most of the time, the company, and that's a success. We call that a success. It was a success for the member. It was a success for the company. It was a success for the union, because they originally just had him out the door, or her out the door. And we were able to not only get them their jobs back, but to make them healthy. And the union would say, if the company didn't want to do it, the union has a program. But if we show that the person is in there and you didn't offer it, we're going to win it at an arbitration. So let's think about this. Let's think about this. And I remember in one case, we got the company was so adamant to get rid of him over it. And this guy was like 63 years old. And we said, you know what? If I can get him to take 18 months worth of pay and retirement medical, which he was eligible for anyway at 62, I told the company, it doesn't cost you anything. He's got to enroll in the program. And he gets his pension as if he's 62, whatever his age is. You could take it at 59 and a half if you wanted to. But if I can get him 18 months to get him to where he'd be 65 years old, that he doesn't have to file for his Social Security till he's 65. Because we can go back and forth. He's going to get this job back, and you're going to pay him. And it might take us 18 months, but you're going to pay him. Just get him done. We'll have him sign an NDA. Clears you, clears us. And he's out of here. Your hands are washed, cleaned, and we'll send him for help. You don't have to do it at that point. This is just a simple, we're giving him a buyout, not saying why. And the company come back and they go, hey, if you can get him to do that, we'll do that. And they go, you have till tomorrow, 11 o'clock to tell us. And after that, we're firing him. And look and go, you know what? I can't tell you that he'll agree to it. But I will certainly paint him a picture that even a blind person could feel and see what that picture is. And then after that, you do what you need to do, we'll do what we need to do. And most of the time, I got them to accept it, and they were happy, and everyone was happy. But that's why when I see fast-tracking stuff, that's never a good thing. All right, everyone, thank you. And as always, say a prayer. Give to a charity if you can give. Charity does begin at home. Make sure that charity is a registered charity you give to. Go to that charity. Don't have that charity come to you. Don't be a victim helping a victim. And with that, Danielle, Paul, Chris, Rowan, I'm going to say goodnight. Cannoli. And like I said, Friday is Friday. Yes, Friday tomorrow will be the last show for about a week. I got a lot going on, and I will, unless something is breaking, I don't think I might not even be able to do that. But I will be back on the following Sunday. Hell or high water, I will be back. All right, everyone. You have a good one. As I'm attempting to fade to black.